right, so what we've got here is the BBC News. There's a story that was posted about 5 hours ago. Trump angrily lashes out at Democrats over the impeachment inquiry. So, as we go through this, we're going to look and we're going to find that there is a tremendous amount of bias in this article. Now, I don't care if an article is biased, if the news organization is clear about their bias and they are upfront about it. The problem is that a lot of times they're not, and we're going to see just how they're not here. So, what we see here is, uh, here we go. Donald Trump has lashed out at congressional Democrats after they vowed to issue legal summonses to the White House this week. He used a vulgarity. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. He used a vulgarity. Everybody cover your ears, okay? Because they are going to start burning, right? The Republican president accused Democratic leaders of dishonesty and even treason. Democrats have defended the inquiry, promising a fair process. And of course, it's going to be fair. And we know that we can trust that because the Democrats are saying so. So just like the process of the investigation into Russia was completely fair, and when the Mueller report came down showing that there was no collusion with Russia, the Democrats gladly sort of rolled up to the microphone and said, hey, you know what? We're really glad to hear there was no collusion with Russia and that in fact the will of the American population was done during that last election and Donald Trump is the legitimately elected president of the United States of America. Oh, wait, that didn't happen. No, they kept clinging on and they rolled people up and they rolled Mueller again back in there and they tried to get more information as though there were still this smoking gun that were going to be dropped. But there wasn't, shockingly. Okay. Now, thankfully, though, this article here provides us with a warning. Okay. This report contains strong language. Phew. So I'm glad that they mentioned it up here. And then they gave us a nice big warning here. Okay. Because we know that there are just a ton of 5-year-old children reading this article on bbc.com, okay, about political events. And we don't want to tarnish the innocence of the children. Okay, so I'm glad that they've got that warning there because heaven knows, we don't want people seeing or reading any kind of vulgarity. That's just, it's too much for people, I'm telling you. So here we go. In the call, Mr. Trump pressed for an investigation of his Democratic political rival, Joe Biden, and his son, who worked for a Ukrainian gas firm. No evidence of wrongdoing by the Bidens has come to light. Only, this is not entirely true because there is a lot of stuff that indicates there might be something to the idea of Joe Biden having used his position as vice president to withhold funds unless the Ukrainian government got rid of a prosecutor that was involved in a case that affected his son, Hunter. So there is definitely evidence. Now, does that mean that that happened and that it was related? No, it doesn't. But I don't think that you can say there is no evidence of wrongdoing. You can say that there is the appearance of wrongdoing, or there are possibilities that something has gone wrong. That doesn't mean something has gone wrong or has been underhanded, but it's to say that there's nothing. Again, this is bias. This is a clear bias. Okay. Democrats have pointed out the call with newly elected Mr. Zelensky took place at the same time Mr. Trump decided to withhold military aid from Ukraine. That's true. But again, we see the bias because there is a little something called correlation not being causation. And if I remember right, nowhere in this article does it say that despite the Ukraine not investigating the Bidens in this matter, the money was released. So it could have been something completely unrelated that held back military aid to the Ukraine, or it might not have been. There might be something nefarious in there. That's true. But again, just because the two things happen at the same time does not mean that they are related. And by phrasing it this way, Democrats have pointed out that it took place at the same time Mr. Trump decided to withhold military aid from Ukraine, but not stating that the military aid was released despite Ukraine not investigating Joe Biden. is clearly setting a narrative that the BBC wants to be true and wants to get out there in the public. Okay? Mr. Trump's opponents say he was pressuring a vulnerable U.S. ally to interfere in the 2020 U.S. election for the U.S. president's personal benefit, which again could be true. But it also could be that Donald Trump is simply making sure that he's not giving money to a corrupt government over in the Ukraine, because the Ukraine has had a lot of corruption. So by not mentioning any of that, again, they're stacking the deck on one side of the aisle. And I don't care, I say it again, I don't care if an article or if a news organization is biased. I don't. Okay? Everybody has biases and everybody's allowed to. But the reason that I like news organizations like Rebel Media and now Rebel News is because they are biased, but they're very upfront about their bias. So when you listen to one of the reports, you know that they're coming in with a preset viewpoint. And whatever they have, whatever they espouse, you can then take it with a bit of a grain of salt. You can go look for other information. You can make up your own mind. When organizations purport to be completely neutral on a topic, and then they put out articles like this, which clearly have a bias, but they don't announce that and they just leave it as though they're completely neutral down the middle. Okay, they're being dishonest to the readers, and this kind of stuff annoys me. Okay, far more than if they just came out and said, "Look, as an organization, we don't like President Trump. We lean left, or we like this particular person. We think this person here would have been a better president. And now here's our article." Okay, that's going to be far more honest. And when I read it, then great, I know exactly where you're coming from. Okay, this article here also does not comment on how Zelensky himself has said that there was no pressure felt from Trump to investigate Biden, lest the funds be withheld. Now, you could obviously argue that he's just saying that because he still wants to maintain good relations with Trump, and that was what he had to say to make sure that he continues to get funding in the future, and that's a legitimate statement. But the reality is the money went through without any investigation into Biden. There you go. Now, when we come down here, we're going to come down to Donald Trump with the whistleblower. And where's his vulgarity? Oh my goodness, here's the vulgarity. Here it is, right? Earlier, Mr. Trump, and again, he raged at the most powerful elected Democrat, House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi. He didn't respond. He raged, right, over Twitter, accusing Democrats of focusing on bullshit. Well, frankly, a lot of stuff that they are focusing on is bullshit. And I think his comment here that Nancy Pelosi should focus on her own city, San Francisco, which he described as a tent city of homeless people. Tent city of homeless people, from everything that I understand about San Francisco, that is putting it pretty kindly, okay? Because you see reports about freaking piles of human feces along almost every block that people walk in San Francisco. Okay, needles everywhere, rats everywhere. It's becoming a haven for disease. Recently, I think it was some international medical organization that was having a conference in San Francisco had to cancel because they said, sorry, the health conditions are so bad, we're not going to hold it there because people are going to be at risk if we bring them into this city. Okay? So again, I see articles like this and it annoys me because of the amount of bias that is in here, and it's unstated bias, right? And yet these are the first people to talk about about how people just aren't aware of their own unconscious bias, okay? And they need to deal with their own unconscious bias and recognize how they are biased about things. But these are the people that are, I don't think, unconsciously biased. I think they're intentionally biased and they're just not honest about it. So there you go. That's my comment on this. Basically, who cares if he said a bad word, right? Who cares if he said a bad word at all? We're all grown-ups here. We can all handle a little language. And these are people that are dealing with the most serious issues in theory, the most serious issues in the world, okay? Of course, they're going to get passionate about stuff. And if people are always attacking you, you're going to get upset about it and you're going to lash out. And if people are always um, fighting you on things, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't be, if people are always having confrontations about these things, tensions are going to rise. People are going to say bad things. Who cares?